There's a widespread view that corporations have failed. Failures of systems like the financial system, environmental degradation, excessive pay, failure to pay taxes, all those sorts of things. So there's a wide understanding within the corporate world that reform is needed.
For me, this story really began when one of our shareholders posed the question, what should the right level of profit be for a corporation? Friedman said that the sole social responsibility of business is to maximize profit for distribution to shareholders. But this particular shareholder was challenging that paradigm and saying, no, there is a right level of profit. The Friedman model of financial capitalism that has been implemented through business schools and in corporations throughout the world was great at generating large amount of financial capital, but now that's become almost dysfunctional. Economics is really about the management of scarcities, and when Milton Friedman created his model that only really measure and allow managers to manage financial capital was created when there was a global scarcity of financial capital, but there was a global surplus of natural resources. And it was also at a time when the world had a global surplus of labor. We now have a very different set of scarcities that we need to manage. If the business model in which you're operating under and the rules of the game are actually changing, then you've actually got to change as well your ways of operating. And if you don't, then you're risking your entire business.
When a company makes too much profit, it is destroying something in the supply chain, but it is hidden. And the supply chain is as solid as the weakest link. So if the weakest link breaks, the whole supply chain can be broken.
The idea behind Mutuality is actually to create mutually beneficial relationships throughout what we would call a value chain. So from the farmer who's actually growing the commodities up through the manufacturer, the distributor, and ultimately the consumer. Every relationship in that value chain, if it's based on mutually beneficial relationships that meet each other's expectations, you actually get a higher level of business performance in the end. So there's 4 different forms of capital. Human capital, and that's expressed at the individual level in terms of the well-being, the human flourishing of the individual within the workplace. Social capital is a form of capital that we would find among people. Social capital would be expressed at a community level. Natural capital, the value of the natural resources that are consumed in the production of whatever the product may be, and financial capital. And financial capital currently has a very large set of metrics, and we're not looking to do away with those metrics because they're very valuable. We're looking to significantly enhance them. You only manage what you measure in business. So if you don't have the metrics that actually can measure other forms of capital and assess the value that they bring to the company, they tend to be invisible, yet they're still there. They're still impactful.
The first 5 years of our research was spent to define these new metrics. So the financial capital was easy. It was very well defined. Social capital, human capital, and also natural capital was a bit more complex. By creating stable, actionable and simple metrics to measure this different form of capital, you create a business model that is superior in terms of value creation, not only for the shared financial capital, but across the board. The most important element of human capital are what is called in academia the concept of prospect of upward mobility, PUM effect. So when you know that you have the capability to grow in your job, it's a huge element of human capital. Also, second thing is that your job matters. It has a purpose. Beyond making money, or there is an element of dreams, of vision. The third one is an element about the quality of the relationship that you have with your supervisor.
Social capital would be expressed at a community level in terms of variables like social cohesion, trust, and capacity for collective action within a community. These are the 3 metrics that identify how much social fertility there is within a community.
What are all the natural resources that are required to produce the final product throughout the entire value chain? Biotic materials, so organics essentially, abiotic materials who are inorganic materials, consumption of water, consumption of air through oxidation processes, and then the topsoil erosion.
Shared financial capital is who gets what throughout every part of the value chain, going all the way down to the consumer. What we were able to do was to create a curve of distribution of value across that chain. And the steeper this curve, the more unevenly the value is distributed. And if there are some members in that value chain that are actually receiving too little from what it is that they're contributing to that supply chain, then that supply chain becomes more fragile.
We had the chance to go to Africa and to test this idea in the slums outside Nairobi.
There was not much financial capital, but there's a lot of human capital and a lot of social capital. So there was a lot of people with skills that are underutilized, as well as existing networks of trust in the community that can be leveraged.
If we could connect social capital, this human capital, and with the financial capital, we could create a business that would be superior in terms of value creation than the traditional one.
We introduced them to Wrigley products. We just said, we'll give it to you at a good margin. We trained them on our products. We trained them on basic selling techniques. Not only that, we're saying we're not totally judging anyone on sales. We're totally judging our team on the amount of human capital and social capital they deliver and the well-being of the entrepreneurs and their livelihoods in general. So it's very uncomfortable. Bloom is MAWA 2.0. It's testing the MAWA model in another geography and another culture. Bloom today is around 100 micro-entrepreneurs. It is already profitable, and it's part of a national rollout plan for both Wrigley and chocolate. There's an intention to bring it to other geographies across East Africa, across big markets like Nigeria, Indonesia, and we're actively working on a pilot for China.
We managed to identify a series of entrepreneurs who simply take our product into those places we can't reach. What happens then is we grow our business and they have a great living out of it, and that's been a spectacular success. It's been far more successful than we ever envisaged.
MAWA is very profitable. It delivers real business value.
I really see it making a big impact on the business, but also making a big impact on society. Yeah, every time we mention MAWA to people, I mean, they get excited because of the difference that it's making to people's lives.
The fact that the model driven on Mutuality was more profitable, growing faster, and creating all form of capital at the same time was really a big surprise.
I was asked to come in and do an external peer review of the project Economics Mutuality to validate the quality, the relevance, whether the academic discipline was being followed, to make sure that it was going to be produced with the right scientific methods, the right academic discipline, and so forth. So we assembled a panel of 9 individuals. It included the director of the Paris School of Economics, the vice chair of Walmart, several other distinguished academic and business people. And the results of that were overwhelming endorsement for the project. So I think it's going to turn out being a universal theory that anyone can adapt to their particular situation.
Economics of Mutuality will be positioned as an alternative business model approach to Milton Friedman's Chicago School of Business.
This is potentially a model that can transform the way in which business in general operates.
This new economic model is based on the very simple principle of mutuality, which in English means sharing. When you have a business which is based on the concept of sharing, you create a business model that is superior in terms of value creation. When you create shared benefits, it's good for everyone.